England are going to the Euros next year, although that probably wasn't much of a doubt for many of us on this side of the world. Stewart, Robson and Julien Laurent here with me for this one. We brought in Juls for some parity because we need to. Robbo, we'll start with you now because everyone again is getting excited about this England team. Some have gone as far as to say that, they are much better now than they even were leading up to the World Cup. And we could say that England had a pretty decent World Cup, scoring the most goals that they have in a qualifying tournament since 1908. Stewart was a year old then. So, Robbo, is this the real deal? Is this the real deal? Can England go all the way?
We can't talk about England being a great side until they've played some decent sides. And
so you're not buying the excitement.
You talk about the World Cup, they had a very good World Cup. I'm not sure they did have a great World Cup. They had a World Cup that got them to the semi-finals without playing anybody particularly good. They lost to Belgium twice. And they lost to Croatia. In the games against good sides, they lost the games. They lost the Nations League against the Dutch. They lost in the Nations League against Switzerland. So while they've done very well, and you have to give them credit for the way they've played in the qualifying campaign, the way they've scored all the goals, the way they've built their play up from the back, and the front players have been excellent, and there's been some young players that have come into the side, shown great promise. You can't judge England or Gareth Southgate until England get to the finals, wherever they may be. And England have got a massive advantage because they're going to play the first 3 games in London.
Jules, is that how you see it as well, that England still need to be properly tested before we can buy into this?
Yes, I agree with what Stu said. I think it'd be very interesting to see who they play in the friendlies before the competition, leading into the competition. Do you go for a team where you can get a lot of confidence and beat them quite easily and play well, or do you go against a tough opponent to the risk of maybe not winning and maybe not being in full confidence to start the tournament? It's interesting because there's a lot of positive.
What did France do when they went before the World Cup? Who did they?
So Deschamps always has this idea where you have to find a friendly opponent that will look or play like the teams you're going to play in the tournament. So let's say, for example, you play you draw against a very defensive side in the World Cup or the Euros. Find someone who is similar to that, plays a similar kind of game to that team, so you get used to it. So this is more the idea for us. I mean, I don't know what Southgate is going to do. I think there's still a lot of positive, like Stuart said. Offensively, attackingly, I mean, Harry Kane has had an incredible year, really.
Scoring with his eyes closed.
Yeah, so that's great. But there's still a lot of question marks on who's going to play at the back, who's going to play in midfield, in what formation either, what's the best formation for this squad of players. But, I agree with Stu. At least it brings you a lot of confidence because you can only beat what's in front of you and then you can focus later on the biggest games.
Because the big question mark before and during the World Cup and after the World Cup, who were going to be the creative midfield players? We had a lot of hard-working midfield players, up and down midfield players that did a good job, like Henderson, for instance. Was there a creative passer? There was talk, remember in the last World Cup, about Shelvey being picked because he was the one player who could pass the ball. Now, they have got 1 or 2 options in those areas. Maddison has proved to be a really good passer of the ball. Oxlade-Chamberlain now is somebody that can run with the ball, and he's used to playing in midfield rather than playing out on a wing or playing in behind a front player. He's playing in midfield, and he's somebody that has got that dynamism to run with the ball, get shots away, go past people with the ball. So Maddison, the passer, Oxlade-Chamberlain may be the runner with the ball. So
to you, what's the biggest difference then? Because Jules, of course, alluded to that. There are a bunch of positives as well. We still need to reel it back a bit. But to you, Stu, what do you think? What's the one thing that at least gets you excited? Because he doesn't get excited much, to be fair.
Well, obviously, Sterling is a much better player now than he was going into the last tournament. He's been excellent for Man City. I think he's grown up as a player. I mean, he's had his incident with Gomez, but as a human being, I think he's matured. As a player, he's matured. He's a better finisher than he was previously. So the combination with Harry Kane is an excellent one. You've now got the likes of Sancho, who a young player, 19 years old, who can run with the ball. We very rarely produce players that were great individuals on the ball. Now we are producing 1 or 2 in the front areas, and Sancho is one of those.
Well, just talking about the fact that England are definitely going to be seeded for this tournament, do you think that is to their benefit, or could it harm them as well, given that there are 10 groups and only 6 seedings? So we could see someone, some other ones that have won their group and still be big threats, but not seeded.
Well, France will be in the major
Exactly.
team.
I didn't want to throw it in there, but Jules, how do you feel about that?
It's even better winning it without being seeded in the first place, So you could have a group of death of like England, France, Portugal, who are very likely to be in pot 3, and a team like Serbia, for example, who are Scotland, yeah, or Serbia is probably a better side than Scotland in pot 4. So if you think
That's
about
not
Hang
what
on.
want.
Most teams want Scotland in their group.
yeah,
let me tell
I
you.
know. You're like,
Behave.
where does that come from? Suddenly making
Stevie
Scotland
Nichol's crying somewhere.
Yeah, oh, that's where it comes from. You don't want to hurt Stevie
I
Nicol.
don't want to hurt Stevie.
But imagine England, France, Portugal, and Serbia, for example. That's a hell of a group, you know,
Yeah.
where I'm not sure, you know, anything can happen pretty much in a group like that. So I think the draw will be a big part. Like Stewart said, having your 3 group stages game at Wembley is a massive benefit, massive advantage. Then the semi-final and final potentially as well. You could have a last 16 in Dublin, which will feel almost like a home game for England too. So it will depend a lot of what the draw is and where people are playing. But let's not forget that there could be a very tough draw coming for England or Germany or the top clubs.
England's best tournaments in their history both came when they had home advantage.
Yep.
In 1966, then 1996 when they should have got to the final. They outplayed Germany in the semi-final, only to lose right at the last minute on penalties.
Yeah.
So it's all in England's favour. The way it's set up, the fact they're going to play 3 games at home in the group stages, and they could get the semi-final and final at home as well.
All right. Well, thanks so much, gentlemen. Spirited conversation. I'm sure one that we're definitely not going to cease to have anytime soon. But for now, so far, so good for the 3 Lions. Thanks so much for watching ESPN on YouTube. And for more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for premium content and live streaming, subscribe to ESPN Plus.